Alright, the day has finally come. I am ready to start my Strider mode adventure. If you've been following the channel already, you'll know that I've been doing a series of prep videos for this. You'll find a link to the playlist for that series down in the description below. And before I jump straight in, as I'm very keen to do, and get started, what I wanted to do first was have a very brief sort of mock session 0. And it's not really a session 0 in solo play, but really I just wanted to give a quick introduction, and by way of this introduction, tell you a bit about the channel, tell you a little bit about the campaign that I'm about to be running, just so everyone is aware of a few things. So let me get that out of the way. It won't take very long, and then we can jump straight in. I guess the first thing to talk about is that if you're not familiar with this channel, I do try and make it educational. That means I will potentially slow down the story, take a step back, and talk about some of the mechanics if I think they're applicable or interesting, or they might catch you out, that sort of thing. I don't just try and make it 100% immersive and staying in character and that sort of thing. So that might be jarring to some people, but I try and keep it as seamless as possible. In terms of frequency, I'm going to be running, well, there will be a new episode coming out once every 4 weeks. It won't be any more frequent than that, unfortunately. That's because I have a day job. I have a friend, Toni, who's also helping me with the editing. He also has a day job, and there's a lot of other stuff happening. So yeah, every 4 weeks, that's when a new episode will be coming out. In terms of content itself, I don't think I need to give any content warnings. If there are any content warnings at the start of an episode, I will make sure that they're there through editing before it actually gets released, so you'll know at the start of the video if there's something that might be triggering. But really, I'm going to be trying to keep these episodes, this entire series, this entire campaign, at a sort of PG level. And that's really just from feedback from my Forbidden Lands solo campaign that I ran. I was not doing that. I was trying to keep it a bit more mature. I think the world of Tolkien is a little bit more family friendly, and I want to keep it that way. So if people do want to watch with their children, think of it like, as I said, PG. If you're from the UK or the EU, that's like a level, like a 12 rating, sort of. But really, that just means there might be some very light swearing, if very much appropriate. There's naturally will be some violence because that's part of the Middle-earth story, the setting. And if there's any romance, it will be kept PG. There'll be fading to black. There won't be anything explicit. All right, talking a little bit about the world of Tolkien. It's worth pointing out that I am not a Tolkien scholar. I have read The Hobbit, I've read The Lord of the Rings, and I have actually read The Silmarillion, although that was about 20 years ago, and I've forgotten pretty much all of it. I've been reading wiki articles as I've been prepping for this campaign, and that by no means makes me an expert with lore or canon or whatever you want to call it. But do bear in mind that I play role-playing games where I think it's more important for me to stay in my head canon and not to stress and worry about trying to get every little detail about the setting right. In terms of the game itself, I'm going to be trying to keep it as close to raw as possible, but I do have some house rules I'm going to be using. And to see those house rules, I've collected them all into a Google document. If you check the description down below, you'll find a link to that Google document and have a little read through them. It's things like companions, changing the stances a little bit for a bit more suitability for Strider mode or for solo play, that sort of thing. You'll also notice, if you're a Foundry user, that I will be using some macros that you might not have seen before. I do go over these quite a bit in some of my previous prep videos, but I will be including a description including a link in the description below for where you can find these macros. Now, the roll tables that go behind the macros, I am not able to share. That's due to the intellectual property restrictions on the license. That means you'll have to populate the roll tables yourself, and Yeah, but the macros should still work once you've done that. Again, I've got videos dedicated to prepping Foundry, so go ahead and watch them. If you do have specific questions, it's actually probably better to reach out to me on Discord. There's a link to my Discord channel in the description below. Just because it's easier to reply with text formatting, screenshots, etc. in Discord, rather than trying to do it over YouTube comments. Okay, I'm nearly done. This really the last thing I wanted to mention is that you will also see some artwork that you might not notice, that you won't recognize. And that's because I've commissioned some artwork from a friend of mine, Harry Bodice, who I'm also collaborating with on some of my other projects I'm working on. And he's a very talented artist. I'll put a link down in the description to his Instagram. He's available for commissions, and I've basically asked him to do a series of portraits for this campaign, trying to match the style from the books. And so far, from the pieces that I've received already, he's done a sterling job of that. So my character portrait, for example, for my player hero, is one of these commission pieces. Okay, so that is basically my session 0 done, and I guess without any further ado, let's start this campaign. My player hero is Finnulf, son of Ragnar, a barding from the city of Dale, below the Lonely Mountain. And Finnulf has been traveling for the past couple of months west from Dale. He's crossed over the Misty Mountains in a troop consisting of a bunch of dwarves and fellow men of Dale, bardings like himself, on a trade expedition heading west from Dale with riches and trade goods to bring over to Eriador, which is the area west of the Misty Mountains. And after 2 months of traveling, having waited until the winter snows have melted over the high pass, we have arrived at the town of Bree. And having arrived here, we're going to be waiting. We're going to be taking a little bit of R&R because it was quite a long journey. And that's where we're going to be starting this game. Now, Finnulf, from a mechanical perspective, is not just a barding, he's also a treasure hunter. That is basically like a burglar, like Bilbo. And that, yeah, basically means that I'm very, very much motivated by going into old ruins and looting them. It's not the most valiant of callings, but it's the calling that I have. Bardings are a prosperous folk. That means I don't really need to worry about tracking coin or anything like that. In fact, you don't do that anyway in the One Ring. But it does mean being prosperous, that I can afford to pay for things. I can stay in a private room at inns when I'm traveling, if there happens to be a settlement or an inn around. It means that I have a decent horse when I'm traveling as well, which can help reduce the fatigue from a journey. And that sort of thing. Finnulf himself is not bad with a weapon. He's a young guy. He's in his early 20s. He has a sword that has been passed down through his family and was gifted to him when he was setting off west to have a bit of an adventure. His father tried to talk him out of it, but in the end realized he wasn't going to be able to do that. And to give Finnulf the best chance of surviving this adventure, he gave him the family sword, which has been passed down through generations, and that's effectively what I've got with me. While traveling, one of the dwarves in the group was Balin, who is a famous dwarf especially in Dale, because he's one of the dwarves that was in the party with Bilbo that went and had their adventure and helped to liberate the Lonely Mountain from Smaug. Balin loves to travel and currently is in this troop because he and the dwarves with him are traveling across to the Blue Mountains, which are further west from Bree. But at the moment, they're stopping in Bree to have, yes, again, just a bit of a rest before they continue onwards. On our journey over the mountains, I was pestering Balin for stories about, mostly about the treasure in the Lonely Mountain when Smaug left in a fury, asking for details about their battle, the Battle of the Five Armies, and those sorts of things. So I'm basically very excited and very much interested in Balin, this famous dwarf, kind of regaling me with stories. And as a result, I think Balin would have taken a bit of a shine to me, and has been also giving me, not just telling me stories, but also giving me advice. And as a result, mechanically, that means that Balin is starting off as my patron for this campaign. And safe haven wise, we're going to be having Bree as my safe haven. Now again, if you've watched any of my prep videos, you'll know that I was looking at having Tharbad as starting off as my safe haven, but I've decided that I would like to start in Bree. It makes more sense for my character, and we'll see if I gradually move south towards Tharbad, and if that does then become my new safe haven. Okay, so that's enough of a sort of character background. Finnulf is in Bree. It's early summer, and I guess there's going to be something happening to trigger me wanting to leave and have an adventure, go on a journey. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm waiting for. So let's see what happens. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to consult a number of rolls on the lore table, which is basically a type of oracle that can roll either a noun, an adjective, or a verb, or any combination thereof. So I'm going to be rolling one of each. And the way to do that, over in Foundry, I have some macros here. And I'm just going to click it 3 times to generate 3 of them. And I'm going to be going... Now, normally I would go in order, but one thing with these sort of tables, these sort of oracles, if you will, one thing you can definitely do with them is you can swap numbers around. You can kind of change... Basically, it's meant to be giving you inspiration. So each time I click this macro, it's going to generate... In fact, I'll just do one now so you can see how it works. It's going to generate an action, an aspect, and a focus all in one go. And what I would normally do is I would go with the action, then I'll click on it again. This will be my aspect, and then I'll click on it again, and that'll be my focus. But because I've generated 9 results here, I might pick one of these other ones just to think if it makes a bit more sense. So let's have a look at what I've rolled here. Surrender, far-reaching, message. Okay. Now, I'm using a little bit of knowledge about the adventure sites in the core rulebook, which I'm kind of interested in using here. So we're going to run with that. And basically what we're going to go with is that we're going to look at the focus of message. And we're going to say that there was a messenger who was traveling along the Greenway, which is the road to the south of Bree that kind of goes eventually to Rohan. And they were bringing a message from... They don't say what their message is, but they're bringing a message up the Greenway, coming to Bree, and they were then going to be going from Bree across to... I don't want to say into the Shire, maybe over to towards Rivendell. But the main point here is that there's a messenger from a faraway place, which is where this far-reaching comes from. And the surrender action is that this messenger was in a group, not just himself, but we'll say there were 2 of them, and they were waylaid by bandits, where the Greenway splits and comes up to Bree, and then also heads off towards the Shire and Sarn Ford. His friend surrendered, but the messenger who's come to Bree ran on, or galloped on, I should say. They had horses, and is basically raising the hue and cry. Bandits have captured his friend, and they were heading west from basically this crossroads where they captured him, towards Sarn Ford. So this is the starting sort of hook, I guess. The messenger who has arrived is asking for help, and I see this as a good way of starting my adventure. Someone's in need of help. I know that kind of south of us, there's a region full of ruins, and basically, if they're bandits, they're probably holed up in a ruin, right? So that means there's potential to find treasure, possibly. If not, at least to make a name for myself. And yeah. But going off in pursuit of a number of bandits on my own is probably not a very wise thing to do. Well, it certainly isn't a wise thing to do. So I am going to actually try and find someone to come with me. I'm going to basically try and hire a mercenary, if you will, from here in Bree. Find somebody who's willing to, for the promise of pay, come along and help me rescue this messenger. Now, if I go into my house rules, I have rules for companions. And the way it works is effectively I will be paying them an upfront fee, which is listed next to the type of companion I want to be hiring. And they will also get a 10% share in any treasure I find. So, looking through that list, thinking about what I'm capable of and who I might need to help, I'm kind of interested in getting somebody who's good at fighting to join me. That means, now I am a close combat fighter. I'm decent with a sword, but it might be worth... So I've got two options here. I can go with what I'm calling a ranger, and by ranger I'm not talking about the Dunedain rangers. This is more like a, if you will, a D&D style ranger, so more like a wilderness explorer type of person, somebody who has a lot of experience with hunting, that sort of thing, and it basically can be a sort of ranged person if I need them. But at the same time, having somebody in close combat might also be quite good to have. That way I'm not just being attacked by lots of bandits while someone else is picking them off with arrows. So I think I'm gonna go with a warrior. And looking at the different levels of warriors there, I think well, in fact, let's ask the telling table, which is the sort of yes/no oracle. We'll ask if, first of all, because I've got a lot of available funds. I'm just starting off on my adventure. I'm probably looking to spend a bit of money up front. So to give myself the best chance of success here, let's ask the telling table if there are any veterans, any veteran warriors here who might be willing to join me for some coin. So I asked the telling table, are there any veterans here in Bree who are willing to join me? What are the chances, though? I mean, Bree is a crossroads. There are rangers, passing through. There are dwarves passing through. I think we could probably go with this sort of 50-50. So I'm going to go with middling chances here. So, are there any veterans? Extreme yes. Okay. That definitely means that there is one here. And that means, I think, looking at my house rules here, I can increase the defense by 1, no more than 1, but it also by increasing their fee by 1. So I think what we're going to say is not only is there a veteran here, it's somebody who's like a known warrior, a named warrior, if you will. And they don't just have the stats as listed there. They also have a defense rating of 6, which means their fee is going to be 5 treasure. So, a great axe. Sounds like a dwarf to me. Maybe it's one of the dwarves. In fact, let's go with that. It's one of the dwarves in the group that we were traveling with. One of the main warriors. And when he was probably just kind of quietly listening at the campfires as I was talking to Balin, probably kind of like smirking a lot of the time. And he probably thinks that I'm this green kid. I mean, this is a dwarf. He's probably, you know, a couple of 100 years old. And I'm like 25 or something. And he's just thinking, this Balin has spent all this time giving this kid tips. And at the first sign of bandits, he's going to go rush off on his own. I need to give him a hand. So this dwarf is going to be helping me. And he's going to come along with his great axe. And yeah, I'm hiring a dwarven companion. He is doing it for money. So he makes it very clear that it needs to be made. He's taking time away from what he's wanting to do. He's going to be basically missing out on joining his dwarf companions on traveling west to the Blue Mountains. And as a result, I need to compensate him for his time. That's fine. So I'll be splitting some treasure with him, and I'll be giving away 5 of my own treasure to start with. Now what that means is if I open up my character sheet and go down to the bottom, depending on your standard of living, you can start with a number of treasure. I think if you start at the frugal standard of living, you start with nothing. But otherwise, you do have a number of treasure points. And as those treasure points change, it changes also. It can change what you have access to in terms of better equipment, horses, that sort of thing. So I start as a prosperous character. I start with 90. I'm paying 5 of those out straight away, so I'm going down to 85 as I pay an upfront fee to this dwarf to join me. So let's find out the name of this dwarf. So I have an NPC generator. I'm going to click on that once, and it generates a bunch of names straight off the bat. It's sort of feminine sounding names followed by masculine sounding names on the lists here. And right at the top we've got dwarves. The dwarf is named Borin. It's kind of similar to Balin, but that's fine. I'm not going to worry about his full name, like Borin, son of whoever. He's just gonna have a single name for now. And yeah, he's a kind of named veteran warrior, and he's going to be joining me as we go. So the first thing to do as we get started is we're going to be, I guess one of the things we could do is we could ask around for some rumors about these bandits. So I think I might do that before we actually get started. I'll spend a little bit of time after this messenger has delivered his news to see if I can find any information about bandits in the area. So I'll be asking some questions around, probably mainly in the Prancing Pony Inn. I think to gather rumors, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it's probably a riddle roll. As I'm kind of sifting through scraps of information and trying to put them together. Lore would be more about what I already know about things, and I don't really know anything about this area, so I don't even want to roll for that. So I think as I'm kind of talking to people and seeing what I can find, I'm going to roll riddle to see if I can kind of scrap anything together from what I'm learning. Now, when I click on this, I only have 1 point in riddle. That means I'm only going to be rolling 1d6, a success die. I want to increase my chances here somewhat, so I'm going to spend a point of hope. So I go down here to hope, and I reduce this by 1 to 13. And that means I get a basically get an extra die. Click on roll. And look at that. I got a success. Not just a success, but a great success. That's because I got an extra 6 with the with this rune on it, the Tengwar rune. So, yeah, that basically means I am able to find out. It should mean by getting a success, I find something out. And by getting a great success, an additional success, it means I kind of either find a second piece of information or it's extremely beneficial in some way. So, what do I find out? I find out that maybe one of the rangers, or maybe there's been another traveler who said that, you know, these bandits were moving west from the crossroads, from the Greenway and the road that goes off into the Shire. And that road that goes off into the Shire crosses over a ford called Sarn Ford. And people have, someone mentions that there are rumors of a tower to the west that you can see from to the west of Sarn Ford in the foothills of the Blue Mountains that at night glows blue at the top of a tower, like a ruined tower. And potentially that there are bandits around that area. So I'm of the opinion that that's where we need to go. So what we need to do, we're planning our journey now. So that's the riddle roll resolved. That's my point of hope spent. What are we doing next? We're going to be doing a journey. Now, this is where another one of my house rules comes into play. Because some of the Strider mode event tables can have you zooming in and doing a scene individually, or even stopping the journey as you're right where you are and, you know, whatever, taking your adventure wherever it needs to go. I've changed a little thing about this, and that is, instead of rolling travel at the end of the journey, I'm going to be rolling travel at the start of the journey to generate the amount of fatigue that I'll be able to alleviate. As I then go through the journey and I resolve events as they arise, what will be happening is I will be using those fatigue points that I've basically put into a bank, if you will, as I go to cancel out the fatigue as I gain it. Normally, you would wait. The fatigue would be added up as you go through the different events, and then you would roll travel at the end, look at your horse at the end, which is also able to alleviate fatigue, and you would negate some of those fatigue points, and you would get them all in one lump right at the end. Instead, I'm doing this a little bit more like real time, and I'll be alleviating fatigue initially as soon as it comes up, either with my horse, which can alleviate 2, as I have a decent horse, or by potentially through this travel roll I'm about to make. I'm also aware that this first video is coming up to its the amount of time that I wanted to spend on it, but I think we can make this a tiny bit longer as it's the first one. So I want to just actually resolve these initial travel rolls, get started on my journey, and have 1 or 2 events happen before we call it an end to this first episode. So we want to be heading to Sarn Ford first. Now, I have a suspicion that, that there's off to the west somewhere in the foothills of the Blue Mountains, which are basically here, this sort of region here, that this is where this broken tower is, where these bandits might be at. But if they're traveling that way, they probably would have come across the ford anyway before they would have headed into these foothills. So I want to go to the Sarn Ford first with Borin and see what we can find. So this is our journey is basically going to be coming here first, and we're going to be stopping there and then seeing what we find. So let's calculate things. Before we do that, let's make the travel roll, actually. The end travel roll that we're doing at the beginning. So I come to my character, and I look here at the Strider distinctive feature, which is something included in Strider mode. And basically what it means is that while journeying, the player hero is considered inspired on skill rolls. That means this travel roll is also inspired. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on travel. Oh, one thing I didn't do before I do this, let's quickly look at Borin as a character, because we actually need him here. So I'm going to open his journal entry here. What we're going to do is we're going to roll 2 times on the, let me just shrink this down very quickly. Roll 2 times on the lore table. 1, 2. I'm going to take the aspects out of this. Gentle and dark That's a bit of a weird combination. And those are his distinctive features. Skills. If we look at my house rules very quickly, a warrior has awe and battle as skills. He has a weapon. He has a defense of, we said, increased by 1. So he's a defense of 5. Oh no, 6. Great axe with damage 7. And that's what we need to know about him. Really, it was this gentle and dark that I wanted to generate. There's this distinctive features. And if those come into play, I get some additional bonus dice to basically one bonus dice. Unless it's extremely applicable, then it'll be 2 bonus dice. Which is what the entry in the book for Lore Master characters says. Okay. So that's Boren. Boren's not going to be helping with Gentle and Dark. He's not really going to be able to help me here with my journey roll. So I'm kind of on my own here, but I am going to spend a point of hope. It's automatically inspired because I have the Strider distinctive feature, and that means I'm going to be rolling 3 success dice with my feat die. And this is to figure out how many fatigue points I'm going to be able to alleviate as I travel. So hopefully I'll get at least 1/6 with these 4 success dice that I'm rolling. But we'll see. Okay, I got 1. It's also a success. It's important that it's a success as well. So if we close this down, whoop. Again, it's a great success because I've got this extra 1. That means that it is a success means I alleviate 1 fatigue. I've got this additional Tengwa rune on the 6, which means I actually get a second one. So if I go down to my map here at the bottom, what I've done is I've actually created this little tracker down here. And the tracker, basically, I get to alleviate 2 fatigue from my mount, and now I get to alleviate 2 from travel as well. I've only put 3 hexes in there because I've never really thought I would get more than 3. Even 3 seemed a bit extreme, but I've already got 2 on my first attempt, so that's quite interesting. So I'm able to alleviate up to 4 fatigue in total from this journey, which is interesting. And in fact, just to make things a little bit more fair, once I get to Sarn Ford, we're not going to consider that the end of the journey. We're going to consider that the first sort of like milestone in the journey. The end of the journey will be when I get to this broken tower, which we assume is kind of in this region here. So let's make our first roll, and we're going to be rolling travel again. I'm not going to spend a point of hope. Oh, I need to reduce that hope from the previous. Oh, it's doing it automatically, so I need to add 1 in there because I've only done it twice now. So yeah, when you roll a skill and you click, like here, you click hope point bonus die, it actually deducts it automatically, which is good. Okay, so my next travel roll is to see how far I travel. It's going to influence how far I travel before I have an event. So I'm not going to spend any hope on this. I'm just going to make a straight roll. It's a failure. So what that means is I move 2 hexes. So we're gonna go down here like this, 1, 2. And that's when I'm going to be having my first event. And the way we do this, we come down here, I have a macro for it, I click on journey events, and it's going to generate automatically a journey event from all the tables in Strider mode for me. And I lucked out, I got a good one. The journey event is a shortcut. In fact, just looking at this, what kind of region am I in? I think I'm in the Darklands. And Darklands means that this event roll is made ill-favored. It means I basically have to roll a feat die twice and take the worst result. The way I'm doing this here is I'm actually making 2 separate journey events, and I'll take the worst one. Okay. So they're both shortcuts with 2 slightly different ones. So I'm going to take the first one that I rolled, which is familiar waypoint. And yeah, there's a familiar waypoint along here. Maybe Boren's, we can say that Boren maybe recognizes it. He's been through here before. And it says awareness to recognize the landmark. If the roll succeeds, I can reduce the length of the journey by 1 day. I also gain 1 fatigue point. So that's worth noting, is that I'm going to reduce I need to reduce one of these. So 1 fatigue point means we'll take it off of the travel first. Okay, so I actually don't take any fatigue yet. Yeah, and I need to roll awareness. So let's open up my character sheet. Now awareness for me is a favored skill, so that's quite good. That means I will be rolling 2 feat die and keeping the better result. So that's actually quite good. Let's roll that. I'm not going to spend any hope on this. Okay. And that's going to be a success, I think. Yeah, 14. My target was 13. Which is my awareness. Yeah, my awareness target. So, I succeeded, and I can reduce the journey by 1 day. So that's our first journey event. The next one is going to be also still traveling through these Darklands. So it's going to be... I think it might be where you end up. So let's make our next... We're going to stop here after this second journey, the second travel roll. I'm not going to spend hope to inspire this to get an inspired roll with my Strider mode on this one. I'm just gonna roll it normally, I think, again. Yeah, 12. It's not enough. My target is only 13, so I was just shy of what I needed, but that's fine. That means I move another 2, so down here. I'm near the Barrow Downs, but the Barrow Downs are actually a separate area here covered by these dark hexes. But we're just skirting south of the Barrow Downs when I fail. So let's roll again 2 journey events, because we're in the Wildlands. That means these are ill-favored. Okay, we've got 2 mishaps. Again, if there's 2, I'm just going to go with the first one rolled if they're the same. So that's this one, rough terrain. So maybe as we're getting, passing through the downs here, the terrain is just getting a bit rough. We're going up and down over hills. Maybe there's some undergrowth that's kind of crept in from the downs as well. So explore to safely traverse. If the roll fails, add 1 day to the length of the journey and gain 1 additional fatigue. But I'm already getting 2, and we'll say that these 2 come off of my mount. So we'll take these off. Because yeah, it's probably a little bit hard wearing because of the rough terrain. It's probably a bit rough on my horse. Okay, so let's make an explore roll. I'm going to spend a point of hope on this because I don't want to lose any more fatigue. And this is a Strider. This is still Strider mode. Sorry, the Strider distinctive feature allows me during journeying to get inspired on any of these rolls. And I only have 1 to start with. This is going to give me actually 3 success die. My target is 14. Let's see how we do. Okay, it's a success. That's good. So, yeah, what that means is we don't add... I'm just going to delete this one here. We don't add an additional day to the length of our journey. We don't take any additional fatigue. We still take those other 2. So we pass through this rough terrain. We can see up in the distance, we can see where the Greenway and the other road, as we're coming down on the other side of the downs, we can see where the roads split. And we might just, I think, take a cut across country and go straight to Sarn Ford. 1 more travel roll. That's more like it. A success. It means I can travel 3. I get to travel 3 before I roll, so I'm going to bring us to here as we cross through. We're no longer in the Darklands. We're in Wildlands. And I believe it's called Wildlands. Let me just check that. Yeah. And in the Wildlands, it's just a straightforward journey event roll. When you're in these green areas, the Borderlands, you get to roll 2 and you get to keep the best one. So what event do we get when we get to Sarn Ford? Oh we a really good one. Joyful Sight. A benevolent being. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. So we're gonna see what we're gonna kind of might be using some of the lore tables here to figure out what this means. But awareness to see if we sense their presence. Target number 13. I'm rolling 2 feat dice anyway, so I should have good odds. Okay, that's I think on the nose. Looks like yeah. So success. If the roll succeeds, regain 1 hope. Cool. So I get 1 hope back. What does that mean exactly? Who have we seen? I think we'll actually leave that as a bit of a cliffhanger. I'll think about this for my session 2. Who's the person that we've seen? Who's this benevolent being waiting at Sarn Ford? as Borin and I arrive galloping across. So yeah, that's session 1 finished, episode 1 finished, and I'll pick up again in a couple of weeks to record the next one so that it's ready to go next month in 4 weeks time. So there'll be plenty of time as you're watching this to comment on maybe who is this benevolent being that I've seen, and I'll have time to see some of these comments to possibly implement them into my second episode. But that's me. I'm going to stop here. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.